November 9, 1958, 10:23 a.m. The Libyan desert, 440 miles south of the Mediterranean coast. A British petroleum geologist named Gordon Bowerman is flying over absolutely nothing in a small surveying plane. Sand. Rocks. More sand. He's mapping oil deposits in one of the most desolate places on Earth. Temperature outside is 115 degrees. He's been staring at beige landscape for 3 hours. Then he sees something that makes no sense. A shape. Silver. Geometric. Not natural. He circles back, gets lower, and realizes he's looking at an American B-24 bomber sitting in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Intact. Undamaged. Like someone parked it there and walked away. Bowerman radios his base. Describes what he's seeing. His supervisor thinks he's suffering from heat stroke. But Bowerman insists. There's a bomber down here. Looks almost new. Landing gear down. Wings level. He can even see the tail number, 64. What Gordon Bowerman doesn't know is that he's looking at a ghost. A plane that's been missing for 15 years. A plane whose crew has one of the most haunting stories in military history. And a mystery that'll take forensic investigators decades to solve. This is the story of the Lady Be Good. The B-24 that flew home after its crew bailed out. That landed itself in the desert. And that held secrets that would break your heart when they were finally discovered. Welcome to a story where the plane survived but the men didn't. Where the desert became a tomb. And where a diary found 16 years after it was written revealed exactly how 9 men died slowly under the African sun. Let's go back to April 4, 1943. Salak Airfield, Libya. North Africa. The 514th Bomb Squadron is preparing for a mission. Target, Naples Harbor, Italy. German supply ships. It's a long flight. Over 700 miles each way across the Mediterranean. The B-24 Liberator bomber is perfect for this. For engines. Long range. Heavy payload. The Lady Be Good is making its first combat mission. Brand new aircraft. Fresh crew. They've trained together for 8 months in the United States. Now they're finally going to war. Let me introduce you to the crew. 9 men. Average age 23. You need to know them because what happens to them is going to haunt you. First Lieutenant William Hatton. 26 years old. Pilot. From Long Island, New York. Married. Wife's name is Jean. She's pregnant. Due in July. Hatton doesn't know yet if it's a boy or girl. Won't live to find out. Second Lieutenant Robert Toner. 24. Co-pilot. From Massachusetts. Keeps a diary. Writes in it every day. Has done since he was 16. That diary is going to survive him and tell us exactly what happened in his last days. Second Lieutenant D.P. Hayes. 25. Navigator. From Virginia. His job is to get them to Naples and back. He's good at it. Has never gotten lost. Never missed a navigation checkpoint. Perfect record. That record is about to end in the worst way possible. Technical Sergeant Harold Ripslinger. 22. Flight engineer. From Ohio. Keeps the plane running. Knows every bolt and wire. Before the war he was a mechanic. Fixed cars. Figured bombers couldn't be that different. He's right until the moment he's wrong. Staff Sergeant Guy Shelley. 21. Radio operator. From Pennsylvania. Quiet kid. Barely talks. But on the radio he's a genius. Can fix any communications issue. Can pick up signals through static that other operators miss. That skill is going to fail him when he needs it most. Staff Sergeant Vernon Moore. 22. Gunner. From Ohio. Small guy. 5 feet 6 inches. But mean with a .50 caliber. Can hit German fighters from 400 yards. Fast reflexes. Strong survival instinct. That instinct is going to keep him alive longer than the others. But not long enough. Staff Sergeant Robert Lamott. 23. Gunner. From Michigan. Before the war he was a teacher. High school history. Joined up after Pearl Harbor. Wanted to do something that mattered. He's about to do something that matters in a way he never imagined. Staff Sergeant Samuel Adams. 22. Gunner. From Kentucky. Farm kid. Used to working hard in heat. Used to long days. Used to suffering. Those skills will buy him maybe 1 extra day. Maybe 2. Staff Sergeant John Waravka. 22. Gunner. From Cleveland. Married. Wife's name is Rose. He writes her every day. Sometimes twice. Those letters stop on April 4, 1943. Rose keeps waiting for them. Keeps checking the mail. For months. Then years. April 4, 1943. 2:40 p.m. 25 B-24 bombers take off from Salak airfield. Lady Be Good is one of them. First combat mission. The formation heads north across the Mediterranean toward Naples. The flight takes 3 hours. They reach Naples at 5:30 p.m. German fighters intercept. Flak everywhere. The bombers drop their payload. Hit the harbor. Hit supply ships. Mission successful. They turn for home. This is where everything goes wrong. But nobody realizes it yet. A sandstorm has blown up over North Africa. Visibility near zero. The formation breaks apart. Planes scattered. Each bomber is flying home independently now. Using instruments. Following headings. Trusting their navigators. Lady Be Good is flying at 10,000 feet. Lieutenant Hayes is navigating by dead reckoning. No visual landmarks. Just math and compass headings and prayer. They're supposed to reach the North African coast around 9 p.m. Hayes is watching his charts. Calculating wind drift. Everything looks right. 9 p.m. comes. No coastline. Hayes figures they're running a bit slow. Headwinds. Give it another 20 minutes. 9:20 p.m. Still no coast. Radio operator Shelley tries to raise their base. No response. He tries again. Static. He tries emergency frequencies. Nothing. The radio is working. He can hear transmissions from other planes. But nobody's hearing him. 9:45 p.m. Hayes is getting worried. They should have hit the coast by now. He does the math again. Checks his calculations. Everything is correct. They should be over land. Should be able to see Salak airfield's beacon. 10 p.m. Fuel warning light comes on. They've been flying for 7 hours. The B-24's range is about 8 hours with full tanks. They're running out of time. Hatton makes a decision. They're lost. Can't find the airfield. Fuel critical. Time to bail out. At least over land they'll have a chance. Better than ditching in the Mediterranean. Here's what they don't know. They're not over land. They flew over the North African coast at 9:10 p.m. Overflew their own airfield at 9:30 p.m. Kept flying south into the Sahara Desert for another 90 minutes. They're now 440 miles inland. Deeper into the desert than anyone has ever been and survived. But at night, at 10,000 feet, desert looks like ocean. Darkness. No landmarks. No lights. Nothing to indicate they're over the most hostile environment on Earth. 10:15 p.m. Hatton gives the order. Bail out. Everyone goes. One at a time out the rear hatch. 8 men jump into the darkness. Parachutes open. They drift down. Can't see the ground. No idea what they're landing in. The last man out is Sergeant Ripslinger, flight engineer. His job is to make sure everyone else gets out first. Then he goes. He pulls his ripcord. Looks up. Sees Lady Be Good still flying. Straight and level. All 4 engines running. Disappearing into the darkness like nothing happened. Because here's the thing about B-24s. They're stable. Trim them right and they'll fly themselves. Hatton trimmed the plane before bailing out. Set the autopilot. The Lady Be Good kept flying south on autopilot with nobody aboard. Flew for another 16 miles. Then, when the engines ran out of fuel, it glided down and landed itself in the desert. Gear down. Wings level. Like a trained pilot was at the controls. The plane survived. The crew didn't. The 9 men land scattered across 5 miles of desert. It's dark. They can't see each other. They start calling out. Using whistles from their survival kits. Slowly, over 2 hours, 8 of them find each other. One man, Sergeant Shelley, lands 3 miles away. He hears the whistles. Starts walking toward them. But the desert at night is disorienting. Sound bounces weird. He walks in the wrong direction. By dawn he's 10 miles from the group. He never finds them. The 8 men who group up wait for dawn. When the sun comes up they see where they are. Sand. Rocks. No water. No vegetation. Nothing. Just endless desert in every direction. Lieutenant Toner pulls out his diary. Makes the first entry, April 5th. We bailed out at 10:15 p.m. last night. Landed in the desert. Not sure where. No sign of coastline. Waiting for search planes. Everyone okay. Morale high. They have survival gear. Each man carried a canteen with 1 quart of water. Some hard candy. A compass. A whistle. Signal mirror. Emergency rations for maybe 3 days. They figure search planes will find them by afternoon. This is just temporary discomfort. By noon, temperature hits 120 degrees. They ration the water. 1 sip per man every 2 hours. They spread out parachutes for shade. Use signal mirrors when they hear aircraft. But the planes are too high, too far. Don't see them. April 6th, second day. Toner writes, still no rescue. Water running low. Decided to walk north. Should hit the coast eventually. Can't be more than 50 miles. We can make that in 3 days. They start walking. 8 men, carrying survival gear. Walking north by compass heading. Temperature is 115 degrees. Sand everywhere. If step sinks, walking is exhausting. Here's what they don't know. They're not 50 miles from the coast. They're 440 miles inland. The walk they think will take 3 days will actually take over 100 days. And they have water for maybe 1 more day. By nightfall April 6th, they've walked 18 miles. They're exhausted. Feet blistered. Lips cracking. They drink the last of their water. Toner writes, water gone. Found some small plants. Tried eating them. Made us sick. Moore shot a bird with his pistol. We ate it raw. Need water. April 7th, third day. No water for 12 hours. They're in serious trouble now. Dehydration setting in. Disorientation. Hallucinations starting. They keep walking. What else can they do? They find a small outcropping of rocks. Some shade. They rest there for 4 hours during the worst heat. Sergeant Moore explores the area. Finds nothing. No water. No life. Just more sand. Toner's entry for April 7th. No water for 24 hours. Vision getting blurry. Hatton ordered us to stay put. Save energy. Wait for search planes. But no planes came. April 8th, fourth day. 3 men can't walk anymore. Lieutenant Hayes, the navigator. Sergeant Adams. Sergeant Warafka. They're too dehydrated. Too weak. The remaining 5 decide to keep going. Try to find water. Come back for the others. Toner writes, left Hayes, Adams, and Warafka at the rocks. Hatton, Lamott, Moore, Ripslinger, and I are continuing north. We'll send help when we find civilization. They never see those 3 men again. Hayes, Adams, and Warafka die at the rock outcropping. Probably within 24 hours. Their bodies are found in 1960 by a British survey team. Skeletons under a rock overhang. Still wearing their flight suits. The remaining 5 walk. April 9th, April 10th, April 11th. Toner's diary entries get shorter. Handwriting deteriorating. No water. Keep walking. Don't know how much longer. April 12th, 8 days since bailout. Lieutenant Hatton collapses. Can't get up. His friends try to help him. Give him what little saliva they can produce. But there's nothing left. Hatton dies there in the sand. The pilot who got them through the mission. Who made the decision to bail out. Gone. 4 men left. Toner. Lamott. Moore. Ripslinger. April 14th. Sergeant Ripslinger falls behind. Can't keep up. The others wait. He tells them to go on. He'll catch up. He never does. His body is found 80 miles from where they started. Still clutching his compass. 3 men. Toner. Lamott. Moore. April 16th. Toner's last diary entry. The handwriting is barely legible. Shaking. Desperate. Can't go on. Moore and Lamott still going. I'm too weak. Stayed behind. They promised to send help. Still no water. Still no planes. Why doesn't anyone see us? Robert Toner dies on April 16, 1943, 12 days after bailing out. His body is found in 1960. His diary in his pocket. The last witness to what happened. Vernon Moore and Robert Lamott keep walking. 2 men. Both beyond human endurance. Somehow still moving. The desert has killed 7 of their friends. But they refuse to die. They make it another 15 miles. Together. Neither leaving the other. They die within sight of each other. 50 feet apart. They walked over 100 miles. Survived 13 days without water and temperatures over 120 degrees. Their bodies are found together in 1960. 1 man face down reaching forward. The other on his back staring at the sky. Back at Salak Airfield, April 5, 1943. Lady Be Good is listed as missing. Search planes go up. They search the Mediterranean. Search the usual crash zones. Search for wreckage. Find nothing. After 2 weeks, the crew is declared missing in action. After 6 months, declared killed in action. The families get telegrams. Jean Hatton gets hers while pregnant. Gives birth to a son in July. Names him William Jr. He never meets his father. Rose Warafka gets her telegram. Refuses to believe it. Keeps waiting. Keeps writing letters to the army. Keeps asking for updates. For 10 years she holds out hope. finally accepts in 1953 that her husband isn't coming home. The Lady Be Good sits in the desert, untouched, for 15 years. The dry desert air preserves it perfectly. No humidity, no rain, no corrosion. The plane that landed itself waits in silence. November 1958. Gordon Bowerman spots it from the air. The discovery makes headlines. A perfectly preserved WW2 bomber. In the middle of nowhere. How did it get there? Where's the crew? The U.S. Air Force sends a recovery team. February 1959. They reach the Lady Be Good. And they're stunned. The plane is pristine. Radios still work. Guns still function. They find coffee in thermoses that's still drinkable. Sandwiches in the galley that are fossilized but intact. Everything preserved by the desert. They check the fuel tanks. Dry. The plane flew until the fuel ran out. Then landed. They checked the cockpit. Controls set for straight and level flight. Autopilot engaged. Nobody aboard. They checked the logbook. Last entry, April 4, 1943. Target Naples. Crew of 9. The search begins. If the plane is here, where's the crew? May 1960. A British survey team finds the first bodies. 3 men at a rock outcropping. 78 miles north of the plane. Then they find Lieutenant Hatton. Then Sergeant Ripslinger. Then they find Toner with his diary. The diary explains everything. The bailout. The walking. The slow death by dehydration. The Air Force forensic team reconstructs the timeline. Calculates distances. Realizes what happened. The crew flew over their own airfield. Kept going. Bailed out 440 miles inland. Walked over 100 miles. Survived up to 13 days. If they'd walked south instead of north, they would have found their plane in 16 miles. There was emergency water in the survival kit on board. Emergency rations. Radio equipment. The plane that could have saved them was 16 miles behind them the whole time. February 1960. The remains are returned to the United States. Military funerals. Full honors. The families finally have closure. Sort of. Jean Hatton attends with her son William, now 16. He sees his father's coffin. Sees the flag. Sees the honor guard. And he asks the question everyone's asking. Why did the plane keep flying? The Air Force investigation concludes that Lieutenant Hatton, a skilled pilot, trimmed the aircraft perfectly before bailing out. Set the autopilot. The B-24 stability meant it flew itself for 16 miles after everyone jumped. Then when the fuel ran out, it glided down and landed. The landing gear was down because Hatton lowered it before bailing out. Standard procedure. The plane landed so smoothly that it didn't even bend the propellers. Sergeant Moore and Lamott's bodies are the last ones found. August 1960. An oil survey team spots them. By then, the story of Lady Be Good is international news. The plane that landed itself. The crew that walked to their deaths past their own salvation. In 1994, the Lady Be Good is dismantled and removed from the desert. Parts go to museums. The nose section ends up at the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. You can visit it today. See the cockpit. See where 9 men sat before they made the worst navigational error in aviation history. There's a plaque. It lists their names, ages, hometowns, and it includes one line from Robert Toner's diary, "Still no water, still no planes. Why doesn't anyone see us?" In 2013, 70 years after the crash, a reunion is held in Dayton, attended by families of the crew. William Hatton Jr., now 70 years old, meets the children and grandchildren of the other crew members. They stand in front of the nose section of Lady Be Good, the plane their fathers flew, the plane that survived when the men didn't. A historian gives a presentation, explains the navigation error, shows maps, explains how Lieutenant Hayes, an excellent navigator, made a perfect calculation based on incorrect assumptions. He calculated their position based on the time they should have reached the coast. But strong tailwinds pushed them faster than expected. They overflew the coast without seeing it. The sandstorm made visual navigation impossible. Every instrument reading said they were where they should be. Except they weren't. It wasn't incompetence. It was bad luck and worse weather and the cruelty of the desert that looks the same from 10,000 feet whether you're over the coast or 400 miles inland. William Hatton Jr. is asked if he blames his father for the navigation error. His response: "My father saved $300,000 worth of airplane by landing it perfectly on autopilot in the dark. That's the pilot he was. Precise, careful, professional. The desert killed him, not his flying." The families are asked if the crew should have stayed with the plane. Every expert says yes. Survival doctrine says stay with the wreckage. Easier to spot from the air. But in 1943, that doctrine wasn't established yet. The crew did what made sense. Walk toward civilization. One family member, the granddaughter of Sergeant Lamott, asks the question that haunts everyone. What if they'd walked south instead of north? 16 miles to the plane. Water. Radio. They would have all lived. The historian's response, they didn't know. How could they? At night, after bailing out, disoriented, no landmarks, they made their best guess. North toward the coast. It was logical. It was wrong. But it was logical. The ceremony ends with a moment of silence. For 9 men who did everything right until the moment they didn't. Who fought to survive against impossible odds. Who walked over 100 miles through hell. Who never gave up. The Lady Be Good sits in a museum now. Parts of it scattered across collections. The nose in Dayton. The wings in Libya. The engines in storage. A ghost ship dismantled and displayed. But in the Libyan desert, at the exact spot where it landed itself in 1943, there's a marker. Placed by the Libyan government in 1994. It reads, "Here rested the Lady Be Good. April 4, 1943 to February 1959. The plane that came home alone." And 80 miles north, at the rock outcropping where Hayes, Adams, and Warafka died, there's another marker. They walked toward life. Found death instead. But they never stopped trying. This story isn't about mechanical failure or enemy action. It's about how the desert is more patient than any enemy. How it waits for mistakes. How it gives no second chances. How 9 men could do everything right for 7 hours and everything wrong for the next 13 days and pay for it with their lives. The Lady Be Good is the only bomber in WW2 history that survived its crew. That landed itself and waited to be found. That held evidence of what happened to men who should have lived but didn't. Gordon Bowerman, the geologist who spotted it in 1958, gave one interview before his death in 1995. He said, "When I first saw that plane, I thought I'd found a miracle. A bomber that survived intact. Then they found the crew. And I realized I'd found a tragedy. The plane survived because nobody was aboard to crash it. The men died because they left the one thing that could have saved them." Robert Toner's diary sits in the National Archives now. Preserved. The last words of a man who walked to his death, writing everything down so someone would know what happened. His final entry, barely legible, "Why doesn't anyone see us? We see you now, Robert. 70 years later. We see all of you. 9 men who flew a perfect mission. Made one wrong turn. And paid for it with everything. The Lady Be Good came home. They didn't.